Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of the Hardwood Nation podcast. So, Bryce, this is actually the first episode of season 4. I was wrong last week. This isn't the last episode of season 3, the first episode of season 4. What's going on, my man?
Oh, not much. Just glad to be here as always, and I'm not completely sure I know what you're talking about.
It's fine. Just know this is the first episode of season 4.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So, your magic turned some heads Thursday night when everyone had all the reports wrong when they selected Paolo Banchero with the first pick in this year's draft.
Mhm.
I'm going to give the stage to you. You got it, my man.
So, you're like us. We really don't watch college ball until it's time to know about the prospects because of the NBA. We just don't watch college. So, we don't learn much about these players until around finals time, until the combines start going on, until it's like really close. You see who's going to have the first like 3 picks, 5 picks, whatever, and then you start really looking at the prospects. That's what a lot of people do, not everybody. So a lot of these guys had opinions of these players uh, for the whole season or a few seasons. They watch them as young as you can watch them. So um the hype was always around Jabari and Chet for the most part, and then a few people talking about Paolo, here and there. But then the odds started shooting up at the end, especially in I guess the betting odds, specifically at like booking agencies and things that take bets. Like the odds on Paolo started shooting up the day or two before, and he just seemed to come out of nowhere for people that didn't know or don't keep up with the prospects. So actually, real quick, what I'd like to do is based on your reaction without seeing anything, you just assumed, like some of the media and some of the fans, that the Magic made the wrong choice. Or you were just surprised by the curveball because all the rumors were saying Jabari, right? And some were saying Chet, but very few, if none, were saying Paolo. Okay, he didn't even have a workout with him.
I was
What was your
I
hold
was
on, hold on, hold on? What was your reaction compared to before you knew anything about him or saw him play, and how you were clowning the Magic, even though you like to see us succeed, but then it's more fun for you when we fuck up. So, based on your reaction before you saw him to compared to after you saw the tape I sent you, how wrong were you? And how do you see the pick now that you've actually seen like a 10-minute clip of the guy?
It's like a 13-minute clip. No, I was absolutely wrong, and I was shocked, um, as was everyone, because I had saw where Apollo didn't grant them a workout, things of that nature. Like from what I heard, he didn't even want to talk to him. Like that's just what I heard. So like my mouth was on the floor when they announced him as the first pick. Now I did see those odds that you spoke of, and I did think it was weird, but I was like, okay, because my message for the last month about this has been consistent. I would go with the most NBA ready player. I only
Yes.
watched Chet. I only watched Jabari. Between those two, Jabari was the most NBA player ready. NBA ready player. That's who I would go with. I never paid attention to Paulo. Now, my brother-in-law did tell me a couple of months ago at my son's graduation. He was like, "The Magic need to draft Paulo," and I was like, "Sure." I just blew him off. He was right.
Mhm.
He was right. I watched video clips of the kid yesterday that you sent to me, and I was floored. Not so much by his mid-range shot, but I was floored by his footwork. I was floored by his back-to-the-back game, and also his spin move, which was absolutely beautiful. I also love the fact that one, they don't know how tall he is. He could be 6'10", he could be 6'11". He has a quick drop step, and he's 250.
An
I'm a
agile 250 though, he doesn't look
yes,
heavy. It looks
yes.
like fitting on him.
Yes, I'm an old school guy. That's the type of player I like. Any player who can play back to the basket in today's game, any player who has a mid-range jumper in today's game, I'm a fan of. So my fault, my bad, Magic Nation. I can admit when I'm wrong. Um, I would have absolutely picked him had I known more
Mhm.
about him. I am happy with the pick for you guys. I'm still a bit confused because I'm like, okay, he can play three, four. He could play 4 and 5 definitely. He could probably play a little three. So I still don't know where he's gonna fit with the current makeup of your team. But that was a pick you had to take. You can't miss it. I think what happened was, and not to be too long winded here, this was a sneak attack, but it was a good sneak attack because his agent is actually Orlando Magic great Mike Miller. So I think
Mhm.
it was some back end communications that no one else knew about via Mike Miller to get this done. And kudos to him because the Magic are already tight lipped, don't get me wrong, but no one knew this was gonna happen.
Mhm.
So kudos to Mike Miller because there was some back end conversations being had that no one knew about. So yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious because I was just I told you before the draft I was more interested in just how the Magic come into the season after this finally healthy with
Mhm.
who we think we're actually gonna have next year. I know Suggs had a surgery, but and he's gonna miss summer league, but they're saying he should be ready to go for the season. And if
Yeah.
not, we're kind of already deep, and he's a second year young guy. He'll be back fairly quickly. So I I was less worried about who we were going to draft. I just knew at number one, you have to make sure it's a plus to your team. Like you can't miss so badly that it's a bust. But
Mhm.
I was less worried about like the next generational talent compared to like, I think we can already start trending towards winning more now without anything new, just continuity and the team being healthy. So everything was going to be a plus. I just didn't want to bust, and I just didn't know anything about the Paolo kid. And I didn't know I needed to know anything yet. So when I watched it, um, I was like, for all the reasons really that you thought we should pick Jabari, were just helping us now. Like he has an NBA ready game with a high ceiling, compared to Chet, who's more of a project, with possibly a high ceiling as well if he stays healthy and things. You just thought the right pick was Jabari, but I knew as soon as I started watching like the Paolo clips, I was like, I I think Cameron's going to change his mind just based on like what I know that how you look at some players and things. So as soon as I sent it to you, when you finally texted me back, you're like, okay, I was wrong. I was like, that's the reaction. That's the reaction I wanted because that's how I felt. I was like,
Yeah.
as soon as I watched it, I was like, they're fine. This is I like this pick. And he arguably is the most talented now and has just as high of a ceiling and possibly could be the healthiest of them all just because he already has the NBA body. Jabari,
Yeah.
I think, will be fine, but he's still skinny at 6'10". He's still pretty skinny. But yeah, I was really happy with it. I think honestly, they could have picked any of those three guys, and I don't think I would have been super disappointed. But after seeing more of him, I'm happy with this pick. I'm very happy with it. So no complaints here. I'm ready for summer league and for the season to start.
Oh yeah, summer league is going to be great, and I'm definitely going to be paying attention to it. Um, I do want to say one thing because we're going to jump into our next topic here. We're still going to talk about Chet and Jabari. There was a campaign by Chet's camp not to be drafted by Orlando, and I don't know if I
Mm-hmm.
necessarily agree with that. But like me and you talked offline, I believe he probably wanted to be closer to home since he's from the Midwest. But anytime you have a chance to potentially be the first pick, I think you need to go for it. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
But good riddance because I've been wrong a few times, but I'm just going to say this. I don't think that Chet's going to be the player that people think he's going to be. Um, Now, Jabari in Houston was a fun team to watch last year. They didn't have a lot of wins, but with that backcourt of Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., now you're adding Jabari. They have a young big three.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was their developmental year. I think this year they have another developmental year. getting Jabari incorporated into the team. He is a second generation NBA player. His dad played for Houston briefly in the 80s. Um, I believe him going to Houston will be more impactful than Chet actually going to OKC. I also like what OKC is doing, but I think Houston has more athletic guys, more, what's the word, splashy guys. OKC has the fundamentals down, but Houston's going to have those young dogs. So I'm going to watch a lot of both of those teams, but you couldn't go wrong with the top three. You couldn't go wrong with it. And I think each player went to where they fit the best. Chet never fit in Orlando to me. He fits in OKC. I think Jabari could have fit in Orlando and actually Houston. So I'm happy that he fell to Houston. So this draft looks like, just on surface level, it looks like fundamentals are slowly coming back into the game. And I mentioned this to you in text message. There are a few of these players who are sons of WNBA players. And one thing about the WNBA players are they're actually more fundamentally sound than NBA players. So I think seeing that some of these sons are now getting into the league from some of these women, they're going to have their fundamentals down. Because no sexist remarks, the women aren't as powerful, they aren't as athletic as NBA players, so they have to rely on fundamental basketball and actually better shooting than NBA players. So I think that's going to be a huge advantage for their sons coming into the league. Even Paolo, his mom played in WNBA. So there's some like you should have saw
Mhm.
the huge smile on my face when I saw those highlights. I don't give a fuck about defense right now. He's a rookie, but just seeing his poise on the floor just gave me a
Mhm.
huge smile. I was like, oh my.
You can give him the ball and he can get you a bucket.
Yes.
And with
Yes.
with his size and footwork and his mid range game, you can if he's on the court and he keeps his poise as who he is as a player, like coming from Duke and stuff. I believe that he can do that. Like he's not shying away from his talent or what he could be. He's embracing
Mm-hmm.
it. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a guy like that, you can dump the ball to him. You're like, get me a bucket. And every team really needs something like that. And I'm not saying that we don't have guys on our team that could like potentially prove that they could consistently do that all the time. But to have more options and to have a guy like this come in as a rookie at like 19 or however young he is, I'm really excited about it. It adds a part to our team that we need, that every team could use. So yeah.
Look, here's another thing that kind of piqued my interest for a split second. Okay, before the draft, they started releasing the players in their suits and stuff like that. Generally, and I don't know if this is coincidence or what, but generally speaking, the flashiest suit is always worn by the first pick. Just generally speaking, right? So when I saw Apollo's purple suit, I was like, hmm. For a brief moment, I was like, he has the flashiest suit. But I still didn't think the Magic was gonna pick him number one. I was just like, okay, this kid's probably gonna go third, but he has the flashiest suit. This is weird, right?
Hmm.
But because I had no idea. I had no inkling, no anything. Thought he was never even considered to be number one, and then the Magic pulled this
Hmm.
curveball, but a good curveball. So we're gonna move to our next topic. We got to talk about it. It's gonna be the talk of the town for the summer. What the fuck is going on with Kyrie Irving?
I never know what's going on, Kyrie. I don't know. This is always like my thing with Kyrie. It's never a knock on him as a player. It's like, can we just get like some normalcy? Can you just come in and be our point guard for like 3 or 4 years with no drama and just play basketball and play playoff basketball for us? Okay, that I don't know. I'm not gonna judge him. It's someone negotiating to make their money. I I'm
But you have
just
to play.
as a fan, that's what I wish we could get is I wish we could see him play. So as someone who's unbiased in this situation in terms of like being a Kyrie or Brooklyn fan. I just think it's funny that they're in this situation because they've kind of bred this environment. They both
Yes.
like this is the playground you've decided to play in. There's no loyalty. There's no like consistency. It's are you in charge or am I in charge? Well, now that you're in charge, I still want to get paid max even though I'm not performing. Like I don't I don't know, but you're talented, so you think you're gonna want your money. So I think I think it might just come down to how stern Kevin Durant is with Brooklyn on what he wants to do. If they're like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" and he's like, "Oh," and they're like, "Okay, we're just gonna let Kyrie walk." He's like, "All right." And they're like, "Are you gonna leave?" He's like, "I don't know, maybe." And then they do it, and he's like, "I'm leaving." And they're like, "Okay." I don't know. And they're both so wishy washy. Who knows? I know Dame yesterday was like posting pictures, trying to recruit Kevin Durant pretty quickly.
I,
So
I,
I don't
I
know.
I think Dame's content with just going down with the ship at this point. He's going to be there and he's going to go down with that ship.
Well,
Um,
I think Kyrie ends up leaving, and I think a domino effect probably happens if Brooklyn can't bring in or guarantee Durant something like almost immediate, and then they're just going to have Ben Simmons.
here's the list right now. And ironically, I saw yesterday where Ben Simmons says he feels like he can be the cornerstone of a team. So it's like, great, okay, whatever. All right. So here's the list. So we're going to start with the Nets because the Nets are on his list, of course. He wants to stay there and have all the power. Then you have the Lakers, the Clippers, the Knicks, of course, which was supposed to be the team they were supposed to go to, the Mavericks, which makes absolutely no sense, and then, of course, the Miami Heat. Okay. Um, the Heat's always involved some kind of way, right? As you always like to say. Dallas makes no sense. Luca doesn't even pass to the teammates he has now. He's not going to pass the ball
Mm-hmm.
to Kyrie Irving. It's not going to happen. He's not going to share the backcourt with Kyrie Irving. Okay,
He passes to
Clipper.
someone. He almost averages a triple double. So
He does.
stop
He
it.
does. I'm
It's the
just fucking
Kobe.
with
It's
you.
the
Hey,
Kobe knock. It's like yeah, he passes. It's fine.
I'm saying the same thing that people said about Westbrook. Luca knows I love him. The Clippers. They don't need him. They just need to get healthy with what they have. They haven't been healthy in 2 years. They're fine. They don't need Kyrie Irving. The Lakers. It's just a desperation thing. They just want anybody they can get. LeBron's like, come save me, okay? The 76ers. Can you imagine Joel Embiid trying to put up with Kyrie Irving? And
Like,
do we
and James
think that?
Harden. What?
Yeah, do we think? Well, James Harden would probably have to be included in the deal, so then he would be right
Oh
with.
yeah.
And then Miami, you're not getting Jimmy, you're not getting Bam. So if you want to take Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, maybe, but Brooklyn's not going to go for that. And can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine Eric Spoelstra dealing with Kyrie Irving? Absolutely not. Um, I think he's a megalomaniac. I think he is very not conscious of how other people and other teams perceive him at this point in his career. And we're going to touch on that with Kevin Durant next. But like Kevin Durant, he has a messiah complex, and I don't think it's good for the game of basketball at this point. You know, you can be a highly intellectual individual, you can have your beliefs, but when it comes to basketball, you're still one of the guys. We know you're in Brooklyn where you have just a little bit of power, but at the end of the day, you're still one of the guys. And I just think that he has ruined his reputation by his eccentric ways, by him not showing up, missing half seasons, things of this nature. Be it his fault or not his fault sometimes. I will say that. I'll throw him that bone. Um, I just think his stock isn't as high. I don't think the league sees him as high as he sees himself
Mm-hmm.
because none of these teams absolutely make sense. None of them make sense. He had a shot his best shot in Boston, and he ruined it. And we pretty much saw basically that same team mature and go to the NBA Finals. Okay, so he had a shot to be the guy there. Um, I think Brooklyn's going to call this bluff. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think at most he would sign a 1 or 2 year extension, but they're not going to give him the full max, which is what he's upset about. So I don't think he
Hmm.
walks this year. I think he might walk next year. That's just what I think. But he's going to go to a team who needs to put asses in seats, not necessarily a contender, because I don't think a contender would allow him to disrupt their flow. Dude, if he was to come to Miami, he would be absolutely miserable because he couldn't do none of the shit that he's doing now. It would be like when LeBron first got there. He was miserable his first
Hmm.
year. Um, Kyrie Irving would be absolutely miserable. Of all the teams I mentioned, even though none of them make sense, the one that makes the most sense in the clusterfuck is actually the Lakers because they're just so
Hmm.
desperate. The Knicks don't even make sense. The Lakers make more sense than the Knicks. But I don't know. Which team do you think he best fits with?
Well, I guess if you have to do like a trade or move a piece for a piece,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably LA. I mean Lakers. Sorry, not Clippers.
Right, not the Clippers. Yeah,
I don't think like Kawhi and Paul. I don't know. That's a weird situation to begin with. I think LeBron's asking for help or looking for it, and they have a piece that they can trade for. And I think Kyrie is already used to the big markets, of course, and then he already knows what it's like to play with LeBron. So maybe he's just like, whatever. I don't know. I don't know if there's a good fit because, like you said, it's like he sees himself one way, which you have to, and then the league there. You can only do these things so many times before the league catches up with like that's just who you. This is what we're gonna get from you. So your value drops.
hmm
Um, I hope he lands in Miami for the sake of disarray and hilarious, like just seeing a funny situation because him and Jimmy Butler just I puts a smile on my face. Who knows? They could like get along great. But I would like to see the opportunity for it to be a
don't do that.
disaster.
Don't do that.
And the Knicks would also be funny because that's just like a spit in the face of Brooklyn. And then pretty sure they would get rid of Thibodeau or something. I don't know.
They would have
I
to.
I don't think there's a lot of good situations for him throughout the league. The Sixers, yeah. I don't know. I don't know, man. It's funny. He's just like how many teams is this going to happen to?
Right,
We
right.
I mean, who knows? Who knows? He's talented, so someone's going to pay him something somewhere.
Well, that's where the clusterfuck of the Knicks come in at because they're
They're silly enough to do it.
they've kind of rebuilt the team on the fly. They have to make a decision on Randall, because yeah, they signed him a year ago, but they have to make a decision because he clearly wasn't happy this last year, and they have a bunch of young guys on that team. Do you disrupt that by bringing in Kyrie Irving? This is like what's going on, um, I- and then the Lakers, they're just so desperate. Like one thing about Westbrook is he's going to be there every game. He's going to give it his all every game. Will you get 5 or 6 turnovers? Yes, this is well documented, but that's kind of like Shaq in his free throw shooting. He's going to get you 50 to 60%, and that's it. So you take the good with the bad. So do you go with 82 games of Westbrook, or do you go with like 30 games of Kyrie? If you're LeBron, you have to ask you because you're already dealing with maybe 40 games of Anthony Davis. So you have to
Yeah,
ask. Let's just be real. We're gonna keep it real here. You never know how much Anthony Davis is gonna play. You never know how much Kyrie Irving is gonna play. Is LeBron James gonna deal with that? I don't think he is.
he's getting older, so even he's coming out of games more.
Right.
And with the West being the way it is, you might just not make the playoffs again. You can't mess
Right.
around with that.
Right.
So
So
yeah, LeBron just needs to leave. Yeah,
that might be for next week's episode.
Gonna have to save something to talk about.
There's rumblings that might be for next week episode. So I read you a quote earlier from Kevin Durant where he
Hmm.
effectively, in the second time in like 4 months, called himself a god. I don't know how I feel about Kevin Durant continually calling himself a god. Like I just I and it goes with what we just talked about with Kyrie Irving. It's like their opinions of themselves are higher than they should be. Now, this is coming from a guy who has a big ego. You have a big ego because you're highly intellectual. But calling yourself God 2 times in a 4 month period, I don't understand it. He seems to be a little butthurt because he was responding to Charles Barkley saying that the Golden State Warriors didn't need him. There's a lot of truth there. So it's really a lot of truth there. Um, so collectively, between Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, who are currently teammates, we don't know for how much longer. Do you think their egos are just? It's okay to have a big ego, but do you think both their egos are just a bit overinflated at this point?
I mean, from our perspective, like how I feel as a human, like how I judge these things, absolutely. But like
Okay.
maybe Kevin Durant has a really low floor for what he considers gods. Like maybe he like goes and gets his coffee and he's like, "Thanks God," like to the cashier or something. Like I don't know, I don't know. But I do have like a problem with him bringing up like accolades of like what he was before um
Before Golden
Golden
State.
State
Yeah.
because. But then again, we have to talk about perspective because we're judging it based on could you like take and lead your team to a championship? Maybe his whole goal or whatever was like, I want to win MVP. So maybe when he accomplished that, he ascended to godhood. I don't know, but all I know is like you got beat trying to win a championship by LeBron, and then you got beat trying to get back by the team that did win the championship in Golden State, and then you went and joined the team that beat you. You win two championships. You leave and do nothing else, and you want to acknowledge the time before you won the championships where you won nothing and you couldn't do it by yourself, even though you had Westbrook and James Harden. Like what? I don't even know what he's talking about, and that's the problem with like Durant and like how he sees things. I guess it's I think he's got a really like nice inner circle that he pays well that just pump him up because he's got like this weird world that he lives in, and good for him. I mean, it he is who he is, and how he sees things is how he's going to see things. So there's nobody that's going to change his mind. But like from our perspective and like how we see the situation, it's like a gross overestimation of who you are, and I don't know. I don't know. It's just I don't see it when he says these things. I can't relate to how he sees himself because in my eyes, he's accomplished some things and he's super talented. But if you're claiming to be a god, then what are some of these other true winners? What are they? If you consider yourself this, because I don't think anybody else really does. Not a god, like it's kind of. I mean, it's all over inflation, anyways. But it's just like it's kind of a joke. It's just a joke. He's become a joke at this point, almost in terms of how he deals with the media and his social media presence. It's to me, it's just all a big joke. It's a show, whatever.
Mhm. The only time I've heard an NBA player in reference to God was young Michael Jordan in 1986 dropped a 63 piece on the Boston Celtics. Okay. And Larry Bird said, "We just saw God on the basketball court." Because 63 points in the 80s and 90s is ridiculous. All right. That's the only
Oh, and
time I've
also
heard.
as the best scorer of all time, or one of the greatest scorers of all time, not to cut you off, What's like Kevin Durant's highest scoring game
In the playoffs,
of all time?
I think he said a 50 piece before. Um, I'll tell you in a minute. Um, so that was the only time I've heard someone mention
Hmm.
God in reference to an NBA player was with when Larry Bird, a GOAT, said that about an up and coming
Hmm.
Michael Jordan. Larry Bird was a champion at that time. Michael wasn't. Michael was actually 6 years from a championship. Kevin Durant's high is 55 in the game. Um,
Hmm.
I think this back and forth that he's been having with Charles Barkley, because it even goes back to this bus rider, bus driver comment. Okay, let's
Hmm.
dig deep into this. Kevin Durant feels like he can shit on Charles Barkley because Charles Barkley never won a championship. Let me be clear when I say this. I am a fan of Charles Barkley. Have always been a fan of Charles Barkley. Do I agree with everything that Barkley says? No. Barkley is right in this, and here's why. Barkley had a chance to play with the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen before they got Dennis Rodman. He declined the trade. Had he done that, he would have won 2 to 3 championships. That move would have been similar to the move that Kevin Durant made when he decided to go to an already complete championship team. So without Golden State, all Kevin Durant has is an MVP. He did leave his team to the finals, but like you said, he was shitted on by LeBron James and the Miami Heat. Charles Barkley has an MVP, led his team to the championship round against Michael Jordan. He failed, but he averaged damn near 40 points and fell, and then Michael averaged 45. Those guys went at it in that finals.
Hmm.
So, based on that alone, if you take Golden State out of the equation, where Kevin Durant made a decision to go when Charles Barkley said no to his decision, a team who had beat him, by the way, Barkley said no, where Kevin Durant said yes. The totality of their career as far as hardware is identical. So I don't know why Kevin Durant has this high horse where he thinks he can shit on Charles. Because I'm going to be completely honest with you. Those 2 championships he has in Golden State, even though he kind of shitted on LeBron, means absolutely nothing to me because he didn't leave his team there. So Charles was right in saying he was the bus rider and not the bus driver. Charles is right in that. And I think Kevin Durant kind of gets off. I think that's where some of his ego comes from. Yes, you won an MVP primarily because the media felt sorry for you because you were the good guy in OKC when they pitted you against Russell Westbrook. And then look what happened when you won it. Your attitude completely changed. I have been on the record as far as calling LeBron James a false prophet on this show. You know who else is a false prophet? Kevin Durant. And it's almost as more disgusting as LeBron James's is. Because at least in terms of basketball, LeBron has been consistent with his attitude throughout the duration of his career and has been a great teammate to everyone except for Kyrie Irving, who can't get along with anyone, right? Let's Kyrie Irving's the only one who had a problem playing with LeBron James. Kevin Durant's attitude pivoted once he won that MVP, and then he showed his true colors. So, fuck him. I'm with you on this. He needs to shut up and play basketball. I'll say it again. And let me add this. He needs to shut the fuck up and play basketball and lead his next team to a championship. And then maybe people will take him serious. Because as you just said, he's a fucking joke at this point. I'm done with that.
Oh wow.
I'm
So
done.
so final.
I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I agree. So, no pushback there. I mean, but I think that's how a lot of people feel about him at this point. So,
Can't come
hmm.
at Charles Barkley, man. Come on, you can't keep doing that, man. You know, Charles doesn't give a shit. That's why Charles really doesn't fire back. I give a shit. I'm gonna fire back for the 5 people that watch. All right. So a lot of us were a bit confused with the Knicks on draft night. So
Hmm.
let me clear this up a little bit because what the Knicks did was mortgage this year for next year. So let me explain. They gained a 2023 draft pick in the first round, a second 2023 pick in the first round, and then a first round 2025 pick, and also clear $18 million in cap space for this summer. So that's why the Knicks made the moves that they made. Now, Jalen Brunson, who played alongside of Luka for the second half of the season, is going to be a free
Mhm.
agent. That's who the Knicks are targeting. He's a
Mhm.
second generation
Mhm.
player. His dad, I know, played for Chicago and Portland. The Knicks just hired his dad as an assistant coach. They're going to target Jalen Brunson with some of that 18 mil that they just cleared up. So that's why the Knicks made those moves on draft night. We knew last year they didn't believe in Kemba, so they finally moved Kemba to Detroit. Detroit's going to cut Kemba. Kemba's going to be a free agent. Kemba Walker showed us that he still has some game left in a few games he did play in New York in the second half of the season. What would you do with Kemba Walker knowing he's a free agent? What team do you think he could fit on greatly? Because there's one that he used to play for that's popping up in my mind right now, and they need a point guard.
You need a young point guard in Miami that's not Kyle Lowry because he's obviously not, the young guy that you need him to be
Look,
anymore.
now I'm going to cut you off. We're not doing that. This isn't about Miami. We're not doing that.
I just, if I throw out the idea, I save you from having to throw it out because
I don't
whenever
want him.
someone decent comes up, you're like, oh, he.
No, I don't want Kemba Walker.
Um, Honestly, uh, trying to think, uh, off the top of my head, who needs a point guard? Like,
It's right in your face, Bryce. It's right in your face. Come on. He used to play there.
he used to play in a lot of places.
I am speaking of the defending, and it hurts me to say this, the defending Eastern Conference champion, Boston Celtics. He
Oh, okay, okay. I just think it's so crazy for Boston to pick up a point guard when Smart is the heart and soul of that team. Because
Smart can
that's a
go back.
problem.
He can go back to the bench. The
If
Celtics.
if they don't have to get rid of Smart, then I like it
mm,
there.
mm,
Okay, I'll say
it,
that.
it's been said that the Celtics feel like they need a traditional point guard again. Kemba at this stage of his career can be that. He can be that. They don't need him to score 20 points a game. They don't need him. They just need him to be a facilitator. And while you're playing, I don't think Kyle Lowry would leave Miami, but Kyle Lowry did have an impact on the games he played in Miami in the regular season. That's the type of point guard they need in Boston as well. So um, I could see him landing back in Boston, but in a different role than what he was previously. Um, I could see him end up in Dallas, kind of mentor Luca. I could see him end up in Milwaukee as well. But I really like Boston because I don't think they gave him a fair shake in Boston. They were expecting him to be Kyrie Irving, and he wasn't that. But I think look at how Al Horford just came back this year, how
Hmm.
fucking fantastic Al Horford was, right? I think Kemba could be something like that too because they just need one more
Hmm.
thing to push him over the top, and I think Kimba could do that because he was too good. He wasn't a great player, but he was too good of a player to be in limbo like he is now, and it's a shame that it didn't work in New York. Um, but I think Boston would be a very, very, very good destination for Kimba Walker. I would say Orlando, but you guys are good.
Not yet. Yeah, we don't need that yet.
I think you could use a veteran point guard though. I mean, dude, Michael Carter Williams didn't play for you guys all season. Let's be real. Y'all need to move on from him. Move on from him and get a veteran point guard in there to help out those young guys. So who knows? Who knows? Anything else this week, Bryce?
No, no, I'm tapped out. He got me on the Durant Kyrie stuff.
That's gonna be it, ladies and gentlemen, for this week's episode of the Hardwood Nation podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share our content on YouTube. Follow
Please.
us on Twitter. Comment on all our videos. We always respond back. And you guys stay safe.